Hey guys, so I was recently asked to make a video on the budgeting strategies that I follow. I talk about budgeting, saving, and investing on this channel, but I realized that I have not gone into detail talking about the budgeting strategies that I personally follow and employ in my personal finances. So today's video, I'm going to share with you 4 or 5 budgeting strategies that I have tried and about 3 that I'm currently following. And without further ado, I've got my notepad here where I have written down these budgeting strategies, and I'm just going to go into them and explain how each one of these budgeting strategies works for me in my life with my personal budget. Before I do that, I do want to emphasize that it is important to play around with these budgeting strategies and figure out which one works for you. And you can only do that by trying them out. The second thing is budgeting, like personal finance, is very personal. So make sure you just don't focus on copying what somebody else is doing, but focus on implementing a strategy that makes sense for your personal circumstances, for the level of income that you receive, and the type of budgeting that you want to do. Now, we've taken the disclaimer out of the way. Let us now focus on the strategies. The first strategy is the 50-30-20 rule. And this is one that I became aware of it in 2020 when I read All Your Worth by Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren of the US. And they call this the ultimate budgeting plan because it focuses on 50% of this strategy goes to your needs. So your needs are your 4 walls. I consider it the 4 walls, your rent or mortgage, your utilities, your big debts, that you definitely have to pay, things like that. That is part of your needs. 30% is your wants. So I put wants as in my Netflix subscription, my trips abroad. Those are my wants. I don't necessarily need these things, but I want them. So I allocate 30% per this strategy. Then the third part is the 20%. Now, if you have debt, this is debt and savings. If you don't have any debt, this is just your savings. So 20% towards your savings. I have been using this strategy. Firstly, when I started using it 2020, 2021, I actually followed it to the letter. But then I realized that actually it didn't work for me. Not fully, because I don't exactly send 50% towards my needs, and I don't spend 30% towards my wants, nor do I send just 20% towards my savings. And I say just, it's because I focus more on investing and saving my money than spending. I definitely spend my money because I work hard to be able to enjoy my money. So I make sure I build in fun in my budget. So what I actually decided to do is get as close to these numbers, and I use these numbers as guidelines, right? So 50% is my maximum that I will go on to spend on my needs. That is my maximum. I always aim to be below that. And personally, for my needs, that comes to between, I want to say, 30 to 35% of my overall income, whatever income I've brought in that month. So that's what I try to do. So between 30 and 35%. Then when it comes to my wants, I actually decided to swap my wants and my savings/debt over. So I spend at least 20% of my overall income on my wants. Like I said, things like subscriptions, things like traveling, going to shows, getting my nails done, things like that. I spend at least 20% of the income that I bring in. But also because I save quite a bit, a lot of the times I would already have some of the money that I want to use in a sinking fund. So this is why like I said, I focus more on sending money towards my savings, but my maximum limit for wants is 20%. Then for my savings/debt, my minimum is 30% that I should be sending towards investing, towards saving, maybe in a sinking fund or emergency fund or other funds / paying off my debt. I do have one loan at the moment. It's less than 3,500 right now, and I'm looking to pay that off very, very soon. So I try to make sure that I use this budgeting strategy 50-30-20 as a guide, but I'm not using the exact features, the exact limits set in this budget in strategy as, you know, like this is the holy grail, that this is what I should do. No. And this is why I said make sure your budget makes sense for you. Okay, so that is what I do for the first strategy. The second strategy that I have here is zero-based budgeting. Now, I am sure everybody's familiar with zero-based budgeting. I don't know where it originated from, but the principle is income in minus expenses equates to zero. The first time I heard the concept without actually reading about it, I was like, child, that's why I am in debt. Why would I want to make sure I spend everything that I bring in? I'm trying to look for a budgeting strategy that allows me to save money. I didn't understand the principle then. Then I read about it. Then I watched a lot of videos on YouTube, read books about it and stuff like that. And then I came to understand that the principle of zero-based budgeting is you give your money a job. So every single penny, dollar, cent, whatever, is allocated a job. So if you get paid, say, £2,000, you know that you need to pay your rent or mortgage £500. I wish. So you will allocate £500 of that £2,000 to be going towards your mortgage or your rent, whatever that might be. So you look at all of your bills and you make sure you allocate from that salary exactly where each of that is going to go. And remember, I build in fun in my budget because I just feel like whenever there is no fun in your budget, it becomes rigid and then people hate it and then they drop it. So even when I'm allocating money, I make sure to allocate money towards fun. So like I said, in my 50-30-20 budgeting strategy, I make sure I send 20% of what I bring in towards fun. So that is the principle of zero-based budgeting, and I employ it in my life every single day, and I share my budgeting videos with you guys where I follow that principle of zero-based budgeting. But I also must say that even the buffer is counted for in the way I do things. I account for the buffer so that the buffer that stays in my account is accounted for to cover the next month's bills. So every single cent in my bank account has a job, every single one of them. So that is the principle of zero-based budgeting. The third principle, the third strategy, budgeting strategy that I have here is conscious spending. I must admit that I'm still very new to conscious spending. I've been budgeting for years, sharing about my budgeting, my personal finance for the last 2 years. Yeah, coming up on 2 years on YouTube. But I've been budgeting for years. And one thing I have never perfected is conscious spending. This is why I like the 50-30-20 principle as well as the zero-based budgeting, because with that one, I've got certain goals and targets that I need to focus on. With conscious spending, I must admit I have been doing this in the last 6 months alone because I needed to first get comfortable with my budgeting. Like I said, I've been budgeting for years, but this does not mean I don't make mistakes or that I don't have room for improvement. I'm always learning, always keeping myself up to date, trying to understand how I can best improve my budgeting. So with conscious spending, for me, it basically just means like if I overspend, for example, in fuel, I'll make sure in groceries I don't overspend. Okay, so like if I normally have a budget of about between 70 to 100 pounds for fuel, but say like for example in the month of February I actually spent 250 because I had so many trips driving around the country. I made sure that I did not finish my groceries budget. I'm actually ending February with about 100 pounds still left in my groceries budget. So that is the type of conscious spending that I have. I have seen other YouTubers that I watch, that I follow, whereby they kind of just decide, okay, for everything that I need in my life, I'm just going to have, say, $2,000 or 2,000 pounds. And everything that we want to do, we're just going to spend in there. And then if there's anything left at the end of the month, they don't just chuck all of what's left towards the investment and their savings. So conscious spending, personally for me, this principle is one that I only encourage if you're really, really good at budgeting. If you have your foundation right, then I recommend it. But otherwise, honestly, I just say try other methods, honestly, because while it's good, it's not restrictive, but it still requires you to have a very good foundation. It expects you to have a solid plan, you know, especially like automated, where everything is going and then what is left is what you spend on mostly variable expenses. So whereas I am following it right now, I don't encourage it for beginners. So that's the third strategy. Our fourth strategy that I have here is pay yourself first. So even when I implemented the zero-based budgeting and the 50-30-20 rule, I made sure to do the one most important thing that almost all financial books that I've read have taught me, and that is the principle of paying myself first. Now, paying yourself first sounds very easy, because it is, but also it requires you to know your finances in and out. For you to be able to be like, okay, I am going to send every single month £500 towards my savings, you need to be able to know that your income that you bring in will be able to cover that, because you need to take care of your basic needs. Then you need to think about what's left and what you need to buy. I'm not talking about junk food and stuff like that, even though I like fun, I'm still very conscious of my spending. So I had to work out like, this is my salary, these are my expenses, and this is what I'm left over. Now, can I push myself by reducing the variable expenses? Because for sometimes with the fixed expenses, they're fixed for a reason, or, you know, they're fixed for a period. So sometimes you can't change that. But for the variable expenses, if I know that for variable expenses, I always have £1,000 allocated for those things, I could try maybe not spending £1,000 on those things. I could maybe be doing £750. Then the £250 plus the 20% or 30% that I normally allocate towards my savings, that is the amount I take out first before I do any budgeting. So the principle of paying yourself first is to make sure you understand your budget, look at your fixed expenses especially, and then look at how much you can afford to send towards yourself, like your investments towards your savings. It just tries to encourage you to not have this idea that, oh, I will invest, I will save what is left over. You need to be able to say, I'm going to take out this amount of money, send it to my investment savings, send it to my savings, and Bob's your uncle. And then I'll work with what I'm left with. But I think a lot of us, because I was the same at the beginning, a lot of us do, let's get everything through first. Let us pay all of the bills, which is important. And then your variable expenses, which, you know, you can probably cut back on, but you feel like you can't. And then if there's anything left over at the end of the month, then you send it towards your savings and investment, which is to yourself. So it is important that you understand your basic budget, and then I'll know how much you can afford to send to these investments, to savings, and then always take that amount or adjust based on if your income fluctuates every single month, and send that towards yourself. And normally that's in a form of investing and saving. So that is the principle number 4. The fifth principle that I have, or strategy, is the envelope/cash budgeting. I will say this, I am not a cash budgeter at all, purely because before, my biggest problem was I felt like I needed to spend everything that was in my wallet. Then I changed over to just tapping ignorantly. That led me to actually try the cash or envelope budgeting, whereby you put, say for example, for groceries, you allocate £200 to groceries. You put that £200 in the envelope and you just spend from that envelope. And once that's done, that's it. No more. You can't, I mean, you can if you wanted to, but the idea is you limit yourself and be strict with yourself that if the fun envelope or the groceries envelope is over, that's it. It's over for that month until your next pay period and stuff like that. That worked for me to help me curb my groceries, my food budget, because that was the biggest culprit. And I tried it in 2021 into 2022, and it worked miraculously to a point where I was actually very more goal oriented. I can never say this word. So I made sure that I always budgeted. I always looked what was already in my house. Then I went to the grocery stores with an idea of exactly what I wanted to buy, obviously written down, not all in my head, because you know, kind of forget when you see new things. So I really went religiously. I always left my cards at home, and I didn't have like Apple Pay and stuff like that on my phone, just to make sure I stuck to how much I was carrying on me, because once that was done, that was it. So that is the cash or envelope budgeting strategy. Now, personally in my life, I use about 3 or 4 of these. So I still use the 50-30-20 rule, although mine is a little bit tweaked towards my needs. Then I follow a zero-based budget, so I balance out my budget every single month because I allocate all the money in my account towards something. And then conscious spending is something that I have recently introduced into my life, and I'm still working on that. And also pay yourself first. That is something that I do, and I think I've spoken about this in a couple of my reset/budgeting videos, where I say I get paid in the middle of the month. Immediately on that day or the day after, I send money towards my investment and my savings. I don't have any bills until the end/beginning of a new month. That's when I pay. So there's a period where once I get paid, there are no bills or anything else that I'm paying for except paying myself. I set it up this way because it works for me. It makes sense, and it makes me feel in control that, oh, look, I just got paid, and before all the direct debits start taking their money, I am sending money towards my future. That makes me really happy. So I implement a lot of these budgeting strategies in my life, and the message I want to send home is you can try all of this, but make sure you don't copy somebody else's specific budget. Try them, see what works for you, give them a couple of months, and then choose 1, 2, 3, 4, as many as you want. But make sure whatever strategy you choose is one that will work for you. And also, we go through different seasons in life. One budgeting strategy may have worked for you at the beginning, but now you're more advanced or you've changed up things in your life, then you need to try a different budgeting strategy. So it really, really does change depending on the season of life that you are in as well. So that is all I wanted to share with respect to the budgeting strategies that I personally follow, and I'm sharing with you guys. Hopefully you follow some of these as well. Let me know in the comments if you follow any of these budgeting strategies and which one you prefer. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.